shit and learn to survive.
What up, everybody? It's your boy DJ Rowe coming through on Anna's
Global History Night.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you got us a guest
night.
here, huh?
I do, and I'm thrilled. This is Manny Treto.
I couldn't be more thrilled. I'm extremely thrilled to be here with you. I am very appreciative for the invitation.
Yeah.
And I'm extremely happy to be here with you.
Well, good.
Shout up a little bit.
Yeah. Awesome. We love having guests, and yeah. I've met you before, but I was talking with Manny at a very fun night playing Uno at the
right.
yes at the supposed to be Solano Pride Center in Vallejo. It's been supposed to be for quite a while, and there's still stuff that happens there sometimes. There's game nights, which are a lot of fun.
That's right.
And
There's
other stuff.
a lot of cool things that happen there.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. So hopefully, but Manny does a lot of other things.
I do.
Yes.
Indeed I do.
Yes. So do you want to tell us about some of your projects?
Sure. So I am very involved with like a lot of technology stuff, a lot of web stuff, a lot of that kind of stuff. And specifically as it relates to music and world events, news, and that sort of thing. So I run several websites. Technology is like one of my passions, and so I'm really into all that. And everything that has to do with music and world events,
Oh yeah.
politics, current events, all that sort of stuff. That's my cup of tea.
Well, yeah. Well, you've come to the right place. Do you know who Bobby Wine is?
Of course.
Okay. Oh my God, I love you. Yeah, we follow Bobby Wine on here
do?
real
Oh,
closely.
cool.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. Bobby Wine is a Ugandan rapper known as the Ghetto President, and he was he's been incarcerated last year and tortured and left the country for a while and came back, and he was just thrown in jail again last week and released. And what happened was the journalists that covered him being incarcerated were all suspended by the government.
Go figure.
Yeah. Go
Right.
figure. And so the president of Uganda is Yoweri Museveni, and he just amended the constitution to raise the age limit so that he can run for president again. And he's old. He's like 75 or something. And I just got, okay, cool, because I just put some more notes down about this earlier. Okay, so there's a communications regulator, and so that's the people who were suspended after covering Bobby Wine. And so the presidential election in Uganda is next year in 2021, and it's believed that Bobby Wine is going to run, and it has been, so I'm just hoping he can stay alive.
Right.
And yeah, and so but the prior opposition candidate is named Kizza Besigye, and he was asked whether he feels eclipsed by Bobby Wine. Bobby Wine is like getting a whole lot of attention, and so Mr. Besigye said, "Eclipsed from what?" He said, "It's rather a misplaced concept. The struggle that is going on is not a struggle for leadership. The struggle is for liberation so that the country can be truly under the control of citizens. And there's interaction between all the fighters for freedom to regain that freedom." And I know that there are probably people who will say that he's just saying that, but it felt sincere to me. And so my hopes were that they were sticking together.
Sure hope so. 'Cause,
Yeah.
We need people like him, right?
Yes, we do.
And even though that's like for a lot of people, it seems like it's like a whole different world or whatever.
Yeah.
Because being in a different continent and all that sort of stuff. But really, the world gets smaller and smaller every day.
Yeah, well, that's
Right.
one of the cool things. I mean, that's one of the reasons I like finding international rappers so much. And oh yeah, I got the most hits on on YouTube on any. Well, I'm really excited on this when I talked about Nipsey Hussle and Eritrea.
Right.
So yeah,
I watched them.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I did. It was awesome.
Thank
You
you.
blew it out of the water.
Thank you.
Yep, you sure did.
Blushing here, but well, so we have Bobby Wine, and so what are some other and Nipsey Hussle? What are some other international musicians that you find inspiring?
Well, see, I follow a lot of Latin music.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
That's one of the reasons why I wanted to come here tonight
Yeah.
too, to just talk a little bit about that project and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I work with a lot of Latin artists. That's what we're doing is a lot of reggaeton artists, which
what?
is
Yeah,
reggaeton.
what is that?
Reggaeton is like a mix of like hip hop, R&B with reggae, so
Okay.
to speak. It's a music that started in Panama and moved over to Puerto Rico, became very popular in Puerto Rico, and in essence, it's like Latin hip hop, so to speak. And now it's very interesting because so a lot of the artists that I've been following for a long time, that I've been going to their concerts and doing all this sort of stuff, are a lot of these reggaeton type artists.
Yeah.
And almost everybody knows what reggaeton is now because reggaeton has become so mainstream. And like a lot of the artists that were doing a lot of music that was considered like Latin pop or Latin ballads or all that sort of stuff, like even artists, for some odd reason, Latin artists tend to last forever. Latin stars never burn out. You know what I mean? It's like you look at like even someone like Ricky Martin or and you think, God, that guy's been around forever, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But then you look at some other stars, like other Latin stars, and they're like back from the 70s or whatever, or they're like, on their walker and they're still famous and that sort of stuff. And it's like Latin people have this affinity with their artists.
Loyalty. Yeah.
That's right. And they never let them go. And so a lot of these artists are now actually singing reggaeton or doing duels with reggaeton, duets or whatever with
Oh,
reggaeton
that's
artists.
cool.
Yeah, so it's very cool. And but reggaeton is and now the big thing that was like the 2000s and even the 90s and all that was reggaeton. Right now the big thing is trap music. It's like a lot of the music that catches on from a lot of even U.S. type music and stuff. So there's a lot of influence in that. And so right now the big thing is trap music. And so you got these huge artists like Ozuna, Bad Bunny. And
Where are they from?
They're from Puerto Rico.
Okay.
And a lot of them live in Miami or they live in Florida. They go to New York. They're all over the place.
Yeah.
But these are huge artists now. And some of these artists are actually... There's one thing about Latin music that really is spectacular is that it gets so much traction.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people throughout the Americas and so many people that speak Spanish throughout the world. So there's more people that speak Spanish than English in the world. And so as a result, you get people like Luis Fonsi, who is a Latin artist, and he sung this Despacito song, and there was like, that song like went all over the world, and and there's like you saw Asians in Asia, dancing to it and groove into this music, and it's because of that, so it's like Latin music has come of age, and it's really mainstream, and it's really like it's just all over the place.
Do you feel like it's lost anything by becoming mainstream?
It has, to a certain degree. I mean, if you look at it, if I'd ask my parents, oh my God, they definitely say so.
Yeah.
Of course. And if you ask, anybody that is a little bit older or whatever, they'd say so. Of course, the newer generations don't really know it. And then we also have to look at there is some social responsibility that comes with that and certain things, because we don't know what, if this music is also being used for political purposes and that sort of thing, because it's very mainstream Americanized or whatever, and so in a way it's kind of like a missionary thing to take to the heathens, so to speak. You know
But
what
if
I mean?
it's Latin, but if it starts as Latin music, then who's intending to? I mean, who's?
Well, no, it's just if you look at this music, it really gets popularized from the United States to, say, Puerto Rico,
Oh, okay.
which is a U.S. territory,
Right.
and then it goes, to other Latin countries.
So some of the performers are in
The majority of the performers, well, at first,
Yeah.
it started out as because it started out in Panama.
Yeah.
It was in Panama is where like it really got by African Panamanians.
Yeah.
Who started. They were singing in buses and stuff, rapping. Really, is what it
Yeah.
was. It's like rapping it out and stuff. And then and then it went to Puerto Rico, and it was kind of spreading throughout the Caribbean, because throughout the Caribbean you have a lot of very there's a lot of desire for and a lot of demand for reggae music.
Yeah.
And it's kind of started out as reggae, and then from there they gave it like some Latin twist to it, and they incorporated a little hip hop, a little rap, and a little this and that, and before you know it, the soup is a great soup to drink. To eat.
Well, yeah. Oh, wow. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm gonna have to. You just made me think of so much music to be looking up.
You definitely need to. Because it's a phenomena that it's all over the world. And when you look at these people's or these artists' hits on YouTube and stuff like that, it's like one of these guys can put out a song, and within weeks, within days, within one day, sometimes within 24 hours, it can end up getting possibly millions of pages.
Oh, wow. See, that is one thing. I mean, wow. I don't follow. I haven't even tried to start following music on YouTube. I know I'm I'm not there yet, but yeah. I mean, so how is that? So that's really a big part of people's career now. I mean,
Oh,
they
it
can
definitely
get
is.
their career.
Very much so. I mean, I would say that if that's not a component of your musical career, then you're probably not going to make it.
Then you don't. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's all about social media and stuff nowadays.
Yeah.
Which is really wonderful and really awesome, because a lot of people who were in the old days, you never got a shot if you didn't have a record label to be behind you or whatever. Nowadays, it's you don't need a record label. I mean, you do, but you don't. So,
Yeah. I mean, it's really great. I mean, I have a social media project I started in 2014, and I mean, there's criticisms with social media, but for me, I'm like, there's no way I could have done a lot of the stuff I've done without social media. And so, yeah, there's problems, but the good really outweighs the bad for me. Just being able to get stuff out there directly and make direct connections with people all over the world.
That's right, and I mean, it gives you an audience that you didn't have before, and this is something that spills over into practically every aspect of life nowadays, and that's what makes it so cool.
Yeah. So do you notice? So are there many regional differences in South America with the music?
Yes, there is, in the sense that there is and there isn't. I mean, music is international.
Yeah.
Music is really the truly international
Yes,
language.
it is the universal
Right?
language. Yes.
Yep, it's the
Yes.
universal language. And so I would say that, anywhere you go, I mean, like if you go to practically every corner of Earth you go to, you're going to find that there is people who, who just speak that language.
Yeah.
They will like Guns N' Roses. They will like, old AC/DC or whatever, and like young kids. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And then they like rap, and then they like hip hop, and they like everything. And everybody has their favorites, and it's really a universal thing, And so there is a difference in that, for example, reggaeton has taken over and it's really popular, and trap music right now is really taken over and that sort of thing. But by and large, the differences are not as large as you would think. I think in the old days there was more of a difference than there is now, because I think that in the older days, people had more, there was what was called, like Mexican regional music,
Yeah.
or or certain musics that are particular to certain regions of South
Yeah.
America or Central America, or even North America, which Mexico comprises part of North America. So in that case, yes, but really, I think as the world gets smaller and smaller with the internet and all that sort of stuff, even though people are speaking different languages and stuff, they're all kind of combining into one single thing.
And so, and like I swear, like Google Translate and stuff.
Yep.
And like now, somebody was was involved in some, local project, and somebody's going like, oh well, it should be in Spanish too. And I was like, well, people. And I was like, people are gonna hit Google Translate if they wanna.
Right. Yep. It's like that's like my
Yeah.
website, buenamusica.com.
Yeah.
My website is in Spanish.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that don't speak Spanish come to it. And a lot of people told me the same thing. They said, why don't you translate it? Why don't you make it in
Well, it's
English?
like because Google Translate
I'm like,
will
Google
do
will
it.
Translate.
Yeah.
And and the whole thing is people like,
Yeah.
people will find a way if you really want something.
Well,
It's like
exactly.
people who want something all around the world who are looking for information
Exactly.
or whatever. They go to an English website and they translate it into their own language.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So it's almost like
Yeah.
the world is just getting
Yeah.
smaller.
And I want to clarify that politically and socially, there are situations where I feel like it is very important to have translations. I mean, for example, in like a healthcare situation, it's important to have like translations so that people feel comfortable and stuff. There's just
Of course.
So I'm not, but there's other situations where you're just like, yeah, man, do some work.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and I'll tell you,
yeah.
the truth of the matter is that Google Translate does not translate correctly. I mean,
Well, it's not that great.
It's not like 100%.
Oh, no,
I mean,
but-
it's been getting better, and it gets better and better. But it's there's nothing like a native.
Well, no,
speaker,
yeah.
right?
If you don't, well, it's kind of like looking stuff up. Yeah, it's kind of like looking stuff up on Wikipedia. You can't
Right.
totally trust it, and it's not the greatest, but it gives you a gist of something.
That's right. It gives
So-
you, that's
Yeah.
very true. Very true.
Yeah. So that's pretty. So are there many women Latin American?
Oh,
singers?
artists.
Yeah.
Very
artists.
much so.
Yeah.
Very much so, and in all genres.
Yeah.
Like you'd see, like even in the reggaeton fair. I mean, obviously, the reggaeton genre is actually very male dominated, but there is some very important women who have broken the glass ceiling
Yeah.
and have gotten through it and are doing very big. There's this gal named Kelly G. She's doing very good.
Mm-hmm.
And Carol G. I'm sorry. And of course Kelly G. is here too, right?
Yeah.
But Carol G. She's from Colombia, I believe, and she's doing very well. And the queen of them all her name is Evie Queen.
Mm-hmm.
Evie Queen is from Puerto Rico. And she's
been out for a while.
She's been
hasn't she?
out for a while.
Yeah, I've heard that name.
Yep. So, and she's come here to San Francisco. She's come to the Bay Area, and she's done concerts here. She's a very exotic figure and does very well. But she hasn't lost her touch.
Yeah.
She's still going. And just like them, there's a lot of very famous women who are also doing very good, and a lot of new and upcoming ones.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to tell you their names like right off the top of my head, but
Yeah.
you could visit buenamusica.com and
Well,
you'll see
I
them all
will.
there.
I will. Here, say the name again for our listeners.
It's buenamusica.com.
Yes.
And so it's all
Musica.com.
That's right. And what we do there is we have like all this information about artists. We have their biographies, their discographies, their lyrics, their biographies, just everything. Just a little bit of
And
everything.
so can you purchase music directly?
No, but we're working on something so that you will be able to very soon.
So you can support the artist directly.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. And so the main thing is this tool is really meant to be to actually promote artists and all their content.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. You're really again, you're like making the world a smaller place.
That's
connecting
right.
the world.
That's what it's all about,
Yeah.
And I learned something new.
What
I
is
always thought her name was Ivy Queen. So now it's Evie Queen. I didn't know that.
You
Because
pronounce
it's spelled
it,
like I-V-Y.
yeah, because it is Ivy.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I'm
It's
tripping
spelled
off
like
that.
Ivy, yes, Ivy, and it's so. But I call her by her Spanish name. It's just Evie.
Evie
Queen.
Queen.
Evie Queen.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Well, speaking of the world getting smaller, I just found the notes I had down about Venezuela because I was looking forward to talking with you about that because there's been a shitload going on.
Shitload of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Auto-proclaimed himself president of Venezuela,
Who the United States is backing.
who the United States is backing. And this guy, it was a total unknown. Came out of the woodworks. Nobody knew. 80% of the people in Venezuela did not know who the hell this guy was.
So
And
how do you do it?
How do you do it? He just, how do you do it? I'll tell you how you do
Social
it.
media?
No. You get the United States to sponsor you.
Well, yeah.
That's how you do it.
Yeah.
You know, you get Mike Pence to give you his blessing, and that's how you do it.
Yeah.
You get Donald Trump to give you his blessing, and that's how you do it. That's how
Yeah.
he did it. That's the only way he did it, because he's not, he was a total unknown, and all of a sudden he goes from being an unknown to, all this prominence and stuff like that. But it's a mess.
But the government of Venezuela, I mean, it wasn't that, it's not, can you tell us something about the government? I mean,
Venezuela,
it's not
sure.
that.
I've been to Venezuela many times.
Yeah.
And been there and stuff like that. And I'll tell you what the deal is there is, and this is the thing is, here in the States, you have to be careful for one thing, and that is corporate media.
Yeah.
Corporate media.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people will think, corporate media, it's Fox News or whatever. No, it's not just Fox News. It's MSNBC. It's all media.
You have to get all sources. I watch Fox. The biggest one I watch is Al Jazeera. But yeah,
Right.
You have to get a bunch of different sources and put it together in your own mind.
Exactly.
Because
and not just media though, not just networks. You have to watch other things that are, you have to go out and do your own research.
Yeah.
Aside from the media, because if you just watch networks, see, there's a problem with the networks, and the networks is that they have their corporate sponsors, and they will only push the narrative that their corporate sponsors want them to push. So a lot of people will say I used to admire a lot of people like Rachel Maddow.
I don't admire her anymore.
And you know what? I've lost total respect for that woman because, and I will call her that woman just like Bill Clinton called Lewinsky.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I've lost all respect. She is a corporate hack.
She's gotten way too partisan for me.
She's a corporate hack.
Way too histrionic.
And let me tell you, a lot of these, that's one of the things that we got to watch out for is a lot of Democrats and stuff, so-called Democrats, with the big D or with the big D or with the small D or whatever, are just corporate hacks doing the bidding for the people who can pay them the highest bid, unfortunately.
So,
So you were asking me about Maduro and
well,
the president of Venezuela.
the president. I mean, so how many years? Do you have family in Venezuela?
I have a lot of
Very
almost
close.
all my staff practically is from Venezuela.
Okay.
And I do have family in Venezuela that are not blood related, but they're family.
Well, yeah. So, how many years have you been going there?
I've been going there since 2007.
Okay. So people
so-
talked about wanting. Have people really wanted their government to change?
This is what happened. This is the part that most Americans do not understand or do not know, and that is that Venezuela was a very poor country.
Yeah.
But very rich, but very poor, because it is one of the richest countries.
Yeah, it has a bunch of oil.
It has a bunch of oil. It has more oil than Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, when I learned that, I was like,
See,
what?
I've been to Venezuela, and I remember one time we went up to the hills in Venezuela, and we were there, and you could actually take a bucket and get this gooey black tar that is coming out of the ground. That's how much oil there is there, how much
Nasty.
petrol there is.
Yeah.
It's just, it's not nasty. It's, well, it is nasty.
I mean,
To think of it that way. right?
literally, I mean, yeah.
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 But I'll tell you what it is. It's, there's so much richness there. Not just oil. There's also diamonds. There's also
It sounds like DR Congo.
cobalt. There's
God, it's like South American Congo.
aluminum.
Yeah.
There is just so much. I mean, that country has a lot of gold and a lot of aluminum, uranium, all kinds of stuff. So it's just, it's a blessing. I was watching this little cartoon where shows Donald Trump, Donald Trump looking down at a map of Venezuela with the, flag of Venezuela and stuff, and he sees that there's like all these little piles of gold and piles of diamonds and all this
Yeah.
petrol coming out and all this sort of stuff, and he's looking down there pointing at it going, oh my God, so many human right abuses. Look at all that gold. Look at all that oil. I see a lot of human right abuses here.
Oh, man.
That's really what it amounts to. It's like, so very poor country for the majority, for 80% of the population
80%.
prior to Hugo Chavez taking,
Yeah.
coming in. And then when Hugo Chavez came in, he said, you know what, I'm going to make the poor people, I'm going to get them out of poverty. I'm going to give them, social services and that sort of stuff. Free education for everybody, free health care, free all this and all that. And
How well did that work out?
it worked out very well.
It did?
It brought down the poverty rate from
Yeah.
80% to 30-something%.
Oh, my God. Wow.
And everybody started going to school. Everybody started, free college, free
Yeah.
university, free healthcare. He brought thousands of doctors, very good doctors from Cuba to Venezuela and opened free clinics for everybody, free dental for everybody, free eye exams, free this and free that. Well, obviously, the people who, what he was doing is he was taking all the oil money
Yeah.
and everything else. What happened was, after all this, they Hugo Chavez came in and they started taking all the oil money that the country used to get, which all these, all the people that are now the opposition used to steal all that money. They used to all, they all used to keep it amongst themselves, and they lived, lavish lifestyles with it. And then when were, building apartments
Yeah.
and giving apartments to people and stuff. And to this day, till today, that program still continues under Maduro. And they have built over 2.6 million. They're going on to, their goal of 3 million very soon of apartment complexes that they give out to people.
Did they become but like, how has it worked out for people? How has it, like, you can't just keep building stuff and giving it away.
Exactly.
I mean,
has it become work? They were,
has it become has it become self-sustaining?
It has. This is what happened. What happened was oil prices went down.
Yeah.
And that was a major blow to them.
Yeah.
But then the biggest problem with all of this was sanctions. Under Obama, Obama started sanctioning Venezuela. When they started seeing that these people were, I think it's just this. There's this whole thing under both administrations, Republicans, Democrats, whatever. They just don't want to see governments or people in other parts of the world that, and unfortunately, most of the time it's start doing something for themselves to bring themselves out of the woodworks and out of poverty and out of that sort of stuff. All of a sudden, they start getting sanctioned, they start getting threats, and they start getting all these.
So, what was the reason? Did he say was it for human rights abuses or
supposedly? But you know what? And they, supposedly, but there is no human rights abuses there. It is one of the countries with the least amount of human rights abuses in the sense that.
So, what was Obama's reason?
Because he was getting pressured. He was getting pressure from, because it's not the president who really rules. It's the the fact that there's people who do not want that system to work, and because they don't want that system to work, they are doing everything in their power to make it not work.
Yeah.
So it's like I think that we're very afraid of other people being able to do things so that if they're protecting their natural resources. This happened a lot in Africa, and it's like where Europe has totally, just stolen all the resources for centuries almost from Africa, and it's what they call a problem with the South. It's like if you look at the northern countries of the world, they always tend to like to go to the southern hemisphere to bring resources and plunder from there to bring it to the north, so that the people in the north can live a very lavish lifestyle. Sometimes you're going down the freeway or whatever, and you look at all these thousands of cars, and you look at all those cars, and you're like, my goodness, how did all these cars? What are all these cars? Where do we get so much oil from? To run all these cars and stuff like that. Well, that's where from. It's because we're bringing it from the Middle East. We're bringing it from South America. We're bringing it from all these places.
So So how did was the problem? Was part of the problem with Venezuela's natural resources is not being able to use them very well?
Not being able to sell them. For example, right now, this is the problem with the sanctions. So with the sanctions, for example, Britain has billions of dollars worth of gold that they have retained, and they will not allow Venezuela to take its gold back. And Portugal has done the same thing. The United States has taken over the company, the Venezuelan gas company that was here. It's like a chain of gas stations and stuff called Citgo, and they have taken over those and given them over to this self-proclaimed so-called opposition leader, Juan Guaido is his name.
Yeah.
And so because of that, They can't buy medicine. They can't buy.
Oh, yeah,
They
yeah.
can't buy. So really, like a lot of people say, oh, we want to help. There was this humanitarian thing that we wanted to,
Right.
do to Venezuela or whatever. You know what? Do you really want to do a humanitarian mission to Venezuela? Lift the sanctions.
Well, yeah, but it's frustrating because as human beings, I mean, we want to help, and so, I mean, it's very tricky. So, can you go back to okay, what happened after Chavez died?
So Chavez got cancer.
Yeah.
And to this day, there's a lot of conspiracy theories about
Yes, of course.
about the reason why he got cancer.
People
and
do
this and
get
that.
yeah. I mean, people get cancer.
Yeah, people get cancer.
What kind
right?
of cancer?
Oh, you know what? I don't remember what kind of cancer it was, but he got cancer, and he passed away fairly quick.
Yeah.
And so as a result, there was an election after he passed and so forth, and Maduro became the president.
Okay. Wow.
He was his right-hand man, so to speak. He said, he actually instructed the country and said, when I pass, I want this.
Really?
I
He
want
was
you guys to
so he was like a handpicked successor.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Because he knew that he would be able to continue the project that he had started.
Oh, the kind of cancer he had was never made public.
That's right.
The speculation being from prostate cancer to colon cancer, very common kinds of cancer, but yeah.
Yeah. So that's how he became president. He got elected for his first term, Maduro, and then he just got elected again. And people call him a dictator. So this is like the big thing that you hear everybody saying, "Oh, he's a dictator" and stuff like that.
You
And
do.
that's what everybody. Well, he's not a dictator because he was elected. He was elected by the people. If the opposition, the opposition decided, a lot of the opposition, not all of it, because a lot of people think that it was all the opposition who decided to boycott the election, but it was not. There was at least two other candidates from the opposition who ran against them, but they lost.
I don't understand boycotting an election. I
Well,
mean,
they boycotted the election, and then so you boycott the
What's that
election.
supposed to do?
And then afterwards, you come and cry and
Exactly.
say, you know what? He's a dictator because there wasn't enough people.
Exactly.
But actually, he won with 60-something% of the vote.
I mean, I just okay, what does it even mean, to boycott an election? Okay, go vote, and then if you don't think the election is fair, then you challenge it.
Right.
But if
here's the thing: is if you sit it out,
Exactly.
if you decide to boycott it, then why?
That's
then
too
you
bad.
Then you need to live with the consequences.
Yeah.
Elections have consequences.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
And so if that's the whole thing is so I don't understand all these people that say that they're that they're for democracy and all this sort of stuff, and I see nothing but hypocrisy instead of democracy,
yes,
because they tend to say if so here's a man that got elected with over 60% of the vote, more than what Trump per capita, more than what Trump got elected with,
yeah.
and so forth. And so he's the dictator, and this guy's not the dictator. So
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like, I mean, wow, hasn't
what it
America
is, it's
learned to stop meddling in other
that's
countries'
the
elections?
thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
That's the other thing is I hear so many people here, bitching and whining about Russian meddling and and this and that. And I keep scratching my head and going, and why do we Americans meddle in every single damn election in the third world and nobody says anything about it?
And I still think it's
Is that not hypocrisy?
And I still think the candidate. I still think if the candidates okay, if it's so bad, how come the candidates should be able to get out and go speak to directly and go speak to people directly and say what don't believe. Then it wouldn't be such a problem. If they could communicate on their own with people, then they wouldn't need to worry as much about bots and stuff like that.
I think that there's a very important point to be made, and that is that a lot of times people think if you're talking about this or that or whatever or you're also people like to label you as maybe anti this or anti that or whatever, but it has nothing to do with that. It's just that there is reality, there is the truth, and there is falsehoods, and you have to stand with the truth. And the thing is unfortunately there's a lot of people nowadays who are just very misled and very naive and believe everything they hear, and they are just unfortunately most people have very busy lives and don't have enough time to really educate themselves about the issues of the day.
And I think part of the problem is it's not even. I just came from a film called Small Matter about early childhood education, which and it's not even just the problem with people not educating themselves. It's people like it's like sort of confirmation bias. It's just not wanting to. I don't read stuff I agree with for the most part. I mean, that's not interesting to me.
Right,
I know what I think, and so. I have almost everybody turned off on Facebook because they just post stuff I know about, and I follow people I follow my friend or people that don't post political stuff because I know what people, and so people are looking for what they agree with, and that's a problem with Rachel Maddow. People love her because she says what they're thinking. And people really do want to turn on and read stuff and listen to stuff that corroborates their worldview.
Yep.
So it's such a problem with I don't know.
I think that there is something to be said for that because when you mentioned Rachel Maddow right now, it's like I'm sure we're using her as the example tonight, right?
She's a good example.
She's a good example. But what it is that I think that people. Can see through things at some point. At some point, there's times when you are just, you just kind of go with the flow, and you get, you kind of want to believe something, or it's what you like. For example, for the longest time, I just had this concept that if it had a D, if it was a Democrat, if it was something that I believed with, or it was somebody that shared opinions similar to mine or whatever. That that I was I automatically was supposed to follow these people or and the whole thing is that I think I'm kind of growing into a new stage of my life where I'm seeing that I don't have to follow these people because you have to follow the money is what you got to do is who is paying these people and and who are they lobbying for. If you can, and I think that, you just follow the money, and that pretty much tells you, a lot about the person.
I was trying to, I don't know. I just try and think about how to communicate. I'm going to go on a civil rights. Me and my brother are going to go on a civil rights tour in Mississippi.
Oh, cool.
This autumn. And so, I follow a lot of civil rights movement stuff. And so I do want to try and do advocacy in different again because see there was this show with a Democrat and Republican on Fox that I used to call in and talk to, and they got rid of my friend Marie Harf. She's gone. The liberal's gone. I used to call in and talk to them, and she was always so happy to hear from me. And
I have a question for you because you just mentioned a word that made me pop this question.
Yeah.
And that is you said the liberal and so forth.
Yeah.
So to you, do you think that, there's now with the election coming up and all that sort of stuff, and we have, Bernie Sanders and we have, Biden and we have, all these people, and then there's all this controversy about, the left and, and is it the left, has it really gone way left and, this and that, and what is a liberal and this and all that. And so, and then I'm sure you're familiar with the term neoliberal, right?
Oh, yeah.
And neocon.
Yeah.
So the neo-lib and the neocon and so forth. And so would you say a liberal is between a neocon and a neo-lib, or what would you say?
Oh, man. That's so funny because we've had this conversation a lot too on the show. Yeah. Yeah. And also, and what's populist,
What's a populist? Yeah.
Yeah.
Populist. Yep.
Oh, God. I think it's just, I think we need, sort of the way I think that they're terms that just
they're just labels, right?
Well, and labels are just, that's how our minds work. Because I also really object, whenever anybody says oh, I don't like labels, it's oh, you're not all, that's just how, it's that's the same way our mind works. It's oh, that's a phone, that's a computer. So I feel it's a word that if I use the word, it will give somebody an idea of what I mean. Yep. The direct, when I say liberal, you kind of know what I mean. Yep. And if we want, and we can keep talking, and you can get a better idea.
You can define it.
It should be the start of a conversation,
right? And you can take it to, how much definition do you want from this word, right?
Well, yeah, and you need to try and get to specifics and stuff, and because it's just the beginning of something,
Right.
So,
because the reason why I bring it up
Yeah.
is because I think a lot of people are confused. A lot of people throw these terms out there very lightly, and they don't really know what they mean, or they think they know what they mean because of what mainstream media tells us that they mean.
and their friends.
And their
Unfortunately,
friends,
that's
and their friends on
that's
social
the worst.
media and all that sort of stuff. And so so then they think, oh well, that's a liberal, and they're like, am I a liberal or am I a neoliberal or am I, and then they throw out terms like a moderate or a centrist or this or that or whatever, and like, what do these terms really mean?
Well, yeah, you hopefully try and, if, there's kind of hopefully like some general ideas, but I think like one of the ways to think about it is, okay, the terms change, like it's bullshit to start, whatever. There's the progressive wing of the party, which is supposedly these people that have like been around for 2 years, but people that have been around for 50 years are also progressive. It changes.
Right.
Things change. Ideas that were progressive in the 70s change and adapt. It's sort of like, when I was in college, echinacea and stuff like that, and supplements and all of that was stuff you could just get at the health food
Right.
store or something. And now it's at Safeway. Organic wasn't at the grocery store.
Right.
And so then you have a problem with now, like, okay, now it's big business and all of that. So, stuff becomes more mainstream. So,
So do you think then that things that are called, because like a lot of people are throwing around the term progressive right now as if it was some sort of dirty word or something, right? Do you think that is actually going to become more mainstream, or
I think it is mainstream.
it is mainstream? That's what I think. That's what I think, and I think,
mainstream.
but I think that and people who throw that around or who like try to downplay it as if it was some sort of whatever, I think are the people who are afraid of this and who are recognizing, hey, this is mainstream now, and we have to put them down because it's mainstream, right?
It's a difficult concept because I feel like I don't know, because I just feel like it's kind of confining, or I just feel like, okay, how can people not, like, okay, if somebody's conservative politically, how can they be totally against progressive things? People believe in development and science and technology, so it's a tricky word.
It's a very tricky word, and you know what it is, because lately I've been noticing that there's a lot of people who are say like libertarians or whatever, who actually have a lot of concepts that are very, what we would call liberal, so to speak.
I have some real libertarian tendencies. Oh
right?
yeah,
So, me
definitely.
Too. And that's the reason.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I, like, being anti-war is actually a libertarian concept, and I think that's it. But a lot of people just don't understand that. They just, they just want to simplify things. They want to simplify terms, and they want to say, you're either a liberal or a conservative. But no, there is a whole gray area between those two, and there's areas that actually share certain points of view.
Yeah, and we should be able to think that way. So, hey, do you want to take a break?
Let's take a break.
Yeah. So, can you put on some music, Rizal?
Yes, I
Okay.
can.
We don't want to bore anybody, right?
Back in the booth, still rhyming with passion. All is dashing in the latest fashion. Steady smashing, hip hop heads asking, yo, where is H? Got, cause he crack a lack. Check it out. Here I am, fam, stage or age or sky. Give a
Isn't
fuck what you
Joel
call me.
Jimmy
Just
Joya
say I'm
is?
hot like a lobster.
yeah.
Blazing hot.
I was, yeah.
Say I'm on.
I came up with it from somewhere and brought, yeah.
Ask me how I'm living. I said I'm good. Even though I can't afford gasoline, I still call my family true. Like, you know what I mean? My crew do y'all. We just do y'all.
Yeah.
Play this game like a cue ball in a pool hall. Wanna be player? You claim that you ball. Pack your rack raps up in a U-Haul. Truck stuck out of luck. You should've used KY. Artificial intelligence like
we
AI,
have
but stay
a
fly
guy
like
that's
Kanye
doing
or
therapy
Michael
there.
Jackson.
Yeah.
From the
Yeah,
game, but no
but
hyphy
not
track.
too
Yo,
much.
pass that
Because we're
flag.
reviewing all
Yo,
of
let's
this.
blow
We're gonna
one.
review
No
all
one
Okay.
can
But
see
yeah,
a lyrical
eventually
shogun.
we
Come
want
to
to
high
live
rhymes.
work
Okay,
spaces.
show some.
Yeah.
So that people can have like, you know, like this man here,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so he can have like his home and his studio and everything else like that.
Really matters still. I got a lot of skill.
Yeah, because he does duck, this is all from Duck Soup.
Chill.
They do Duck Soup is every other, is the same week as my show. It's the, okay, we're now the second and fourth Wednesday.
Go back and see
So,
the
yeah.
rhymes.
So, I mean, we're second and fourth Tuesdays, except for when there's a prison riot or something, and then, and yeah, and Duck Soup is second and fourth Wednesday. Then on the other Wednesdays, results of DJ.
Same old rhetoric, different composition. I got the same message with new dimensions. Dreams in
Radio for the World.
I got my thinking on full supercharged. You thought it, I said it and spit it and did it, and now you won't forget it. Forced to be ready. You be regretting it. The moment right after the
The
moment.
guy
you
who
decide
made the
to
website, he's in transition.
I'm
He's
chill
trying
about
to do
everything
that,
except for my
right?
flow.
He
So if you
stopped the
feeling vulnerable, you might not want to go
actual
there.
website,
I was
but
born
he's
with a sharp
using
tongue,
it right now.
quick wit. I like to think it's on me, but I know I ain't here. Did it along with a hard head and the old soul.
I tried to
The
go
road
to
I travel doesn't need no
Yeah,
You gotta
yeah.
go on Facebook. You should type in
I tried to send it to him. Yeah, we're supposed to get a green screen. We've been waiting for a green screen. Yeah.
Cool.
Nothing is promised in this world.
You know, sometimes maybe we can even do the show over there.
Oh yeah, that would be cool.
It's like right here, you know, 600 Marine Street in the upstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I learned pain from my
You know, 'cause we
past.
can
Mom
set
taught
up
me
a place
love.
there. In
Walk
fact,
the
I want
fine
to set
line
up
between the two
my own
growing
studio
up.
there.
It ain't
That
I
would
have
be
all
really
the, I have all
cool.
like a bum hug. Never
the
been on the front lines of a
soundproof,
bum
the
rush.
soundboards,
Good
and
for
all
something,
that
believe I'm
stuff. I
hustling.
have
I used to do
condenser
construction.
mics.
So this
I
is
have
really
a
over nothing.
lot of
Just
stuff.
a bishop on side book took the queen. If you stay elusive, easier to tell the truth than lie. Harder to lie than tell the truth. But if you do, I got respect for you. Chances are if
I haven't had a printer in so long.
and I'm over your head. If your president is, you mustn't get it.
other
I'm a
stuff
fucking
you
legend. What's the sense of just keeping it kept in? I don't regret what I'm writing the sentence. If it's amazing, hype is the
So yeah, I
sentence.
just kind of stick with DJ. And of course, podcast.
Nothing is promised in this world.
Yeah, you should stop by Duck Soup.
Putting my day job and sucking my life as a writer was a tremendous risk. It was a fool's late shot in the dark. But anything of any value in our lives, whether that be a career, work of art, or relationship, will always start with such a leap. In order to be able to make it, you decide the fear of failing and the desire.
We loving
So
hard,
this is
we
all like
lusting
recorded
hard,
right
we
and then
looking
put out
hard,
later.
we
Or
acting
it's
hard,
not
These
like
are
that.
actually
Or is it
we
live?
local
hustling
artists.
hard,
These are
we
just
trying
like
real hard not to
local
lose
artists
our
who
ties. We trying
we
real
take-
hard
when
not
we
to
do a
lose
Duck
our
Soup, we take
ties.
local
We trying
artists
real
who
hard not to
are
lose our minds. In the world, peace of mind is really hard to
I
find.
do
Trying
her
hard to
show,
hide feelings
Duck
in
Soup.
these hard times. The law is hard, the judge is cold. You can't get no
Have you thought
bail,
about doing
cause you just
online
parole.
radio,
And your girl
like
so hard you can't call collect. Said it 2 times,
Man, I
kinda
was
hard to
hard,
respect,
but yeah, I
man.
was
And
hard.
would be like, man,
Cause
the
all
only
the
thing
last,
is
he
like,
wanted bubbles
there's
and
two
stuff
things,
too hard to
obviously,
accept.
first thing
Turned
is
out
license.
brother block that wasn't
But
hard
if you
to
have
take.
like a lot
But
of
it also
connections with
turned
local
out he
artists,
wasn't hard to
Right.
arrest.
even local
We
artists or
love it
whatever,
hard.
because I've had
We
a
lust it hard. We look
you know, 24/7.
we acting hard.
The
We
thing is,
working
like,
hard.
I was
We
using
hustle
like
hard.
all the
We trying real hard not to lose our time.
That was
We
hard,
trying real
huh?
hard not to lose our kind. We trying real hard not to lose our minds. In the world, peace of mind is really hard to find. Trying hard to hide feelings in these hard times. We living hard. We giving hard. Forgiving hard. We're risen hard. We're driven hard. We see prison yards. Wars is hard. Peace is hard. The streets is hard. The police
Yes.
is hard. Dying is easy.
Yeah,
but the
so I want to
grief
get
is
back to
hard.
some of the Global History Night programming.
Makes it kind of hard
Got
for
some
a
stuff
brother
to-
to hang
yeah.
out. Makes it kind of hard for the ladies to just chill. Cats is pulling out the steel because they spazzing on the pill. Every other day somebody cap is getting killed. When we see it on the news, it's kind of hard for us to feel. Yeah,
Okay.
it's kinda hard for us to
So we're gonna, man, that was really, really interesting. Very, very cool. So we're gonna get back to some of the more stuff, some of the Global History Night stuff that we've been following. And okay, some of our regulars. Okay, we follow the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban. Prime asshole. Trump's yeah, okay, so he's like, he does this thing where he, like, if women, he's trying to, like, get women to have more babies. Like, basically, he wants more white babies. The guy is, like, super anti-immigrant.
Oh, well, you know,
Super
this is like a
racist.
European thing.
Yeah.
A lot of
So-
Europeans are very scared because
Yeah. So let me get
Their
back to
numbers
what
are
I'm
going down.
to what I'm
Sorry.
doing here. So okay, so we've been saying for a while that, because this is some of our ongoing material, that he is going to get along with Trump, and he visited Trump this week. And Orban's spokesman said that both countries have much that keeps us close, including NATO security, cooperation, energy security, migration, pro-family policies, and the protection of our Judeo-Christian heritage. So I'm like, shit. Okay, here we go. Match made in heaven. Okay, and we've been following Sudan, which is pretty intense. There's been like a real intense protests going on there, and President Omar al-Bashir stepped down, was deposed, and so there's been the military government has been negotiating with the protesters and the opposition. It was moving along like relatively peacefully, but then like about 72 hours ago, there was gunfire, and so there's been a couple people killed, and so the talks are on hold. And that's just another one of, I mean, that's one of the reasons I was interested in what happened with, it's just so hard. I mean, it's so hard to have a successful revolution. So, I mean, it's just,
And so who's
Yeah.
behind these revolutions, or what's?
it's a popular revolution. People. It's been very motivated by women. Women like Sudan had laws that women were like flogged for how they were dressed, and women got it started off of social media. So the military rulers suspended talks with protesters for 72 hours. So there was but yeah, the protesters have been out there. They have not left, and this has been during Ramadan. So
Oh, wow.
yeah. And so the talks have been suspended for 72 hours, but now there is more free press. That has been after Omar al-Bashir's left, so they haven't cracked down on that. Yeah.
Interesting developments.
Yes, it is. It's one of the things that we follow here. And then I've followed South Sudan for a real long time, well, especially because of Emmanuel Jal, the rapper.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the. Well, I was interested in South Sudan, and then I got to. That's how I found out about Emmanuel Jal. I was trying to bring him to Seattle. This was like years ago to do one of his peace workshop things. So I was trying to do that, and I went. I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it off. It was one of these situations where everybody wanted somebody else to get in first. And, like, okay, well. I was like, man, if I could just get one person to get on board with me, other people would. And yeah, so, and then I finally met him. He met him at a show in Sacramento, which was really exciting. So, but anyway, so South Sudan has been having a civil war, its own war, since 2013. And so with like, there's truces and there's not truces. So now the President Salva Kiir has said that delay is needed, he wants a delay for a year before the unity government goes into place, because the government is unable to do anything to like disarm or to like integrate people or anything. And Riek Machar, the rebel leader, who's like this guy he's evil. He's been like wrecking havoc for 40 years. I think he's a zombie, because almost everybody from that era has died. People tend to die, and he's still alive. They like get killed or they get in plane crashes or something. 400,000 people have died there since 2013.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so that was why I've been following. That's kind of one of my interests in Sudan is, so South Sudan got independence, and any of us that were following it knew that it was going to be, that there were going to be problems, because there were always wars going on between people in that part of the country. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And okay, so here's something we were talking about last time. We were the Indonesian elections, where 270 people died in the Indonesian elections, but it's now 5. Did you hear about that?
I did not.
Okay, there were huge elections in Indonesia, and we like weird. It's not weird, but and what they did was they decided to have like basically federal, regional, and local elections all on the same day. And so there were 190 million voters taking part in a country made up of 18,000 islands. There's 3 time zones in Indonesia, and so there were there were 7.5 million people involved in running the election, and so about 500 of them died. And it was blamed on election, like people needed to work like nonstop for 24 hours or longer to get the vote count finished. But the question is, since there's so many people, what's the likelihood of okay, if you're looking at 7.5 million people, how many people of those people are gonna die over a couple of days anyway? That's epidemiology here. Yeah. And so basically, it was a situation where, I don't know, I mean, it's a lot of people, I mean, it's one of the reasons, like back to progressivism, why regular healthcare is ultimately money saving. So many people are walking around like on the verge with like high blood pressure and diabetes and a whole lot of conditions that are treatable and manageable, with regular medical care, and which will kill you if they're not treated. So, okay, if some of those people are like up for 24 hours and not taking their medication or something, that can kill you. you know, if they can't, like, say if somebody doesn't stop to eat and then they go into a diabetic coma. So that's what
So
it sounds
these people
like.
died from those particular types of reasons?
No, well that's the all we know is that 500 poll workers died. That's all we know. So we've been speculating about why,
I see.
basically. Yes. One of those, you know, just the sheer 190 million voters. I mean,
Maybe
yeah.
it was just their day.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say that, but you know,
Well,
it could have been.
but that's okay. If
Because
there's,
if we're just speculating,
well, yeah. Well, if there's, so if you're looking at 7.5 million people, how many of those 7.5 million people are going to die like over a couple days anyway?
right?
So yeah,
that was my point.
yes,
Yep.
exactly. We're on
Right?
the same
We are.
wavelength here.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
Anna.
yeah. So that's the sort of.
That's a good point. What else you got there?
Okay. Well, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, there has been no let up, basically, in Ebola, and yeah, they're targeting, you know, Ebola. It's people are superstitious about the Ebola workers, and so a lot of them are targeted. I'm like, man, I mean, I would risk my life to go, I would go into a dangerous place to try and help people. I would, but
I would
I
too.
don't think I would do it if people were deliberately trying to, like, okay, let's try and, like, kill the helpers, you know. It's like, okay, collateral damage is one thing, but they're deliberately going and trying to kill people at the Ebola centers.
Well, see, that's what superstition does.
Well, yeah, and
Pretty
I don't know.
crazy.
Yeah, and people incite that. Okay, so and then well, this is good. Okay, so in Nigeria, Nigeria just had some pretty interesting elections. Nearly 900 children, including some as young as 13, had been freed by a pro-government militia fighting against Boko Haram. So in Nigeria, basically they have a lot of militias that have just taken things into their own hands because the government can't protect them. So I believe that's who those people would be. So 900, that's a lot.
That is a lot.
Yeah, so, you know, so we just really hope that they can get some sort of treatment and try and, you know, try and be reintegrated back into normal society. So, kids are tough. But, okay. Okay, the other thing about Indonesia is, man, okay, shit. Well, I suppose it's lucky for some of these poll workers that they didn't have. I didn't see anything about absentee votings because in Indonesia, there's areas where so many women have gone to work abroad that they're referred to as motherless villages.
Wow.
Yeah. And one of our guests, Maria Guevara, was on here from Vallejo Together, and she was talking about the Philippines and was saying that, like, one of the reasons that every family in the Philippines has relatives that are working in other parts of the world. Like, everybody. That's one of the reasons that the Philippines, that's why the Philippines are so connected to so many places. But yeah, I mean, it's a trip when you meet people, like, you know, when I've traveled or something, you meet people that are, like, working and you realize, like, wow, this person hasn't seen their family in years.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I went on a dive boat where, like, yeah, one of the women went home. It was this crazy. I felt that the tip structure was that the women that were working on the boat, that it wasn't fair, that the tip structure was unfair, and so I tried to sneak them money. Because it was sort of like they had everybody pooled the tips, but they were all doing really different jobs, so it wasn't fair. And so I was like, shit, man, this woman, this woman sees her family like once a year, if that, and she's being screwed on tips, and I have to try and like do something. So, but I think she was sort of intimidated because she went and told on herself. Like, fuck, that really sucked.
That does suck.
Yeah. It was really alienated because none of the other divers like gave a shit. And I was just like, fuck you people. You can spend like $80 on like a lens for your camera and you don't care that the people that are helping you are getting exploited. I mean,
That's sad.
yeah,
Very sad.
it's really sad. So, okay, so, whoa, we were going to talk about, okay, so it's been like a really, really intense week for a lot of people. There was like a lot going on at Rizzel's job. And then on Tuesday here in Vallejo, there were demonstrations from people whose relatives have been shot by cops. And so there was a press conference and yeah, there was a lot going on. Yeah.
I heard that the city council meeting was actually called off or
It
canceled
was.
because of that.
It was. It got really, really disruptive, and they shut it down. And okay, so there's a guy that like comes there just purely to incite people. I mean, you know, he's there. He just says things like deliberately to offend people, and so. He said some things, and so there were people there's also people coming in from out of town about these issues, because, I mean, everybody hates listening to him anyway, but people here, I think, are a little bit at least more used to him and, like, know what he's going to do.
Who's this guy?
His name, I don't want to give him attention. His name is Ryan Misano, and he, like, at one point, he's he's made comments that I think are threats, and there's this idea, like, people are like, okay, I think here's another concept that people don't understand. It's like, well, it's his free speech. It's his free speech. Like, well, no, you don't have the right to speak anywhere. You know, it's like people would be suppressing his free speech if he wasn't allowed to, like, speak at all anywhere. But I mean, I feel that if somebody is like disruptive but anyway, I mean, he as always does that, but then so people were like shouting and heckling, and so to me, I felt like there was just so much noise coming up from all over the place. I couldn't distinguish it really, but then one woman was like really directing all of her anger at Hakeem Brown, and the neighbor, and like the mayor was saying like please direct our city council member, the only African American city council member, and he's only been on the board for 5 months, like, and so he was saying like, go on, let her talk, but so then somebody, like a supporter of Hakeem, started defending him. And so that person is being blamed she's being blamed by a lot of people, like saying like, okay, well, she started it, but it was like lots of people were being disruptive before then.
I mean, I think that there's a huge problem in Vallejo with, with what's been going on.
Yes, there is.
And I think that we sometimes tend to forget or not go about it in the right way of dealing with it and stuff like that. And I think that, a lot of times we can shoot ourselves on the foot by, not addressing things in the right way or whatever and stuff like that. Because this issue, police violence, is a big issue. And it's a big
huge.
issue. It's a big issue, not just here in Vallejo, it's a big issue all over the place.
Well, they're saying now that, like, statistically, it's even worse in Vallejo than in Oakland. And one of the big issues is that Vallejo PD, the city manager, has hired somebody to come, try and work with the Vallejo cops, and he's a cop that was fired from Oakland.
See, that's the problem that I see, is that a lot of times these issues are not addressed correctly because for one thing, we have the police policing themselves. We have people who just think that, there's a lot of issues, but there's a lot of things that, we need to look at in a very reasonable way, because a lot of people, and then there's a lot of people who just say, wait, the police are here to protect us. They are, but then there's also things that, I've had things that I've witnessed in this life that, make me see certain things in certain ways.
Well, you know what I realized? This was happened last week in Concord. Okay, another issue we've been following is missing and murdered. They're missing and murdered Indigenous women, and so I was watching we talked about it at the last Global History Night. Last week. Okay, there's the show in Concord, and I've learned I wasn't even planning to leave my house till like 9 or something, but that week. But then our other friend Shantae I was gonna drive some other people. She got to my house at like 7:45 or something, like all ready to go. So we got there, but then Age was saying that you were supposed to be there at 8, and was like freaking out. And so I started to get really, really nervous too. It was, and Age said like, well, I've called Roselle 4 times and he hasn't picked up. And you know what I realized, I get worried that my guy friends have been pulled over. That's what I get worried about. I would get worried about that with with my godson. I mean, that's what I would.
That every day, every Wednesday when that happens, he knows he's supposed to schedule. It's supposed to be scheduled between 9 and 9:30. When we first originally agreed to it, it was supposed to be 10 to 2.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it changed. I don't know how it changed to 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
It wasn't supposed to be to 8 o'clock. It was supposed to be from 10 to 2, and I said I can get there between 9 and 9:30.
I was just really starting to get. Well, that's
that
why.
Was on Age. That's
Well,
age.
so then I texted saying Roselle, I'm worried. Where are you? I'm like, Mommy's.
I don't know why Age does that. I don't even.
Well, yeah. Well, now I'll know but I realized okay, well, that's the thing I worry about with my guy friends. If I'm I worry about them I worry about them getting pulled over and shot by cops. Basically, I mean, if it was like my women friends, you worry about them getting snatched somewhere. With your guy friends, you worry about it.
Yeah. One of the issues, like you saw me yesterday. Was it yesterday or was it Tuesday? It was Tuesday.
Both days.
Well, Tuesday definitely.
Tuesday and what's today? Thursday. Yeah, Tuesday and yesterday.
Yeah, it was Tuesday and yesterday, and Tuesday you met me at around 7 something.
Yeah.
And sometimes I get here at that time.
Yeah.
So I told him, I said 8 o'clock would be kind of.
Yeah.
He knew. I don't know why he keeps it at 8 o'clock, but I keep telling him, I said, dude, it's better if you do. I know I can make it there around 9:30. He knows that. I don't know why he flips like that. Yeah. And I actually talk to him when I leave. Yeah. I tell him, man, I'm on my way. He knows. I don't know why he turned it into this big thing. Like I'm gonna get there 10 times quicker. I'm gonna come home. I gotta take a shower. I gotta put everything together. Yeah. He knows. I don't know
that's what was so.
Don't trip off of that.
I won't. And I'm like, I'm gonna tell Shantae to don't get to my house at 9.
Yeah.
So that is the related thing, and that'll happen to they get real, she'd get real nervous if her boy, with her boyfriend wasn't home on time, and that was why,
And plus, I just so you know, my car is I put myself on a state list. So when they stop me, they know I work for the state.
Oh, smart.
So they don't really. I don't know if they'll trip off of me or not, but when they look at the plate, they know he works at this prison.
Oh yeah. Well, that makes a difference.
At this prison, yada yada yada. They know.
Oh yeah, they're not gonna fuck with you.
So they're unless I'm really speeding and doing something crazy, they probably won't just stop me for no reason.
Okay, I'm not gonna worry about you anymore. Yeah. Well, that's our. Oh man, Kate, come to Concord every other Wednesday, man. Right. It's going down there. There's yeah. Yes. Okay. So that's what was, and so it just, and then, okay. So Hakeem came out and was talking to people, and it just, and I was sitting, and his mom it was really, really hard on his mom, and I was really glad Hakeem's wife wasn't there, because I don't need, that would have been, she has a real hard time. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it's really hard for people to see their loved ones getting slammed.
Of course.
And so what I did the next day, see, what pissed me off is that the rest of the city council just let him take all that shit. They all just, they were gone. They just bailed. So the next day I wrote on Vallejo Politics that, like, all of you second term council members just are disgusting to me. Something like, you let the newest city council member take the blame for all this stuff. And I was, so I put down, like, going to, being a leader isn't just, and I was thinking about some of them in particular, isn't just like going to, they like to, like, go to parties and act like everybody's, like, act like they're such hot shit, and they don't, they have a lot more to do with this than, this has been going on for years.
Exactly.
So, the thing the people doing the, causing the disruption are all people that have had, like, loved ones killed by cops. And I'm not gonna, I don't judge them. I'm not gonna talk, I'm not gonna say how they should do things. I would never do that. But I am going to say how I think our, like, elected so-called leaders should do things. You should, like, stand, take responsibility, don't let somebody else, and if somebody's, like, your colleague, your coworker, your friend, or whatever, don't just bail and let them take a bunch of verbal abuse. I mean, who the fuck are you? Yeah. So I put down, like, okay, people that aren't loyal people that aren't loyal haven't needed loyalty.
It's true.
Yeah.
That's a very good concept.
Yes. Yeah.
It's very true.
Yeah, no. So, anyway, but there was a lot of pain and anger, and I don't even know. I mean, Oscar Grant's uncle was there, and, I think everything changed. It's just something like that happens to a person, and nothing in their life is ever the same.
It's not. It is not. Back in the day, I was. I'm also a journalist.
Yeah.
So, and I used to work for a newspaper that I had started myself, and then later I went to Napa Valley Register, and I worked there. It was called Tiempo Latino, and when I was there, I got to report on and witness and work on this whole thing with this case called the Jose Casillas case. It was a gentleman who was a businessman in Napa, and one night I guess he had a few drinks or whatever and stuff like that. Police come by, they think he's drunk and this and that. He must have said something to them or something they didn't like. They take him to jail. Well, lo and behold, he lost his life in jail. Actually, he was all beat up. Well, we don't know. He was all bruised and this and that when he was let go from jail, like a day or two later. And they had to take him directly to emergency from there. And he died a couple of days later. He died actually in the emergency room. And, when you see their families and these kinds of things, and you know what happened, I mean, of course they'll say, oh, he beat his head on the wall or whatever and stuff like that, but chances of that happening, like I knew him. He was a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and I sat on the board with him on the Chamber of Commerce, and I had sat with him on a lot of other things, the Napa County Hispanic Network and a couple other things like that. And, when you see these things happening, and it really makes you question a lot of things. It makes you think about a lot of things and stuff. And even as, growing up as a teenager and so forth and stuff like that, I mean, I remember, being in high school and just about every weekend, getting pulled over for something and things that were totally uncalled for or unreasonable or whatever. I mean, one time I remember, I was going to college. I was already in college. And my mother was following me, and I can't remember, we were going to part ways. We pulled over to the side of the road and to say goodbye. and CHP stops by and gives me a ticket for everything in the world and stuff. Is like, blow your horn, make sure your blinker works, let me check your tires, all these stupid things that it's like totally uncalled for, but things like that have happened to me, obviously makes it to where people who have not gone through those kinds of experiences will never understand it.
Yeah.
It's just, that's all I can say. It's just they'll never understand it.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much, Manny Treto, for being our guest. Tell us.
Thank you.
Yeah, and what's the name of your website again?
So my website is buenamusica.com.
Okay.
Yep. And check it out, and hope to be back at some point.
Oh, definitely.
Yes, definitely.
And so I love what you guys are doing. It's awesome.
you.
Thank
I
you.
applaud you. We need more people like you guys doing more great things like this.
Cool. Thank you so much.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
I'll see everybody in 2 weeks. Good night.
Yes, everybody. This
thank
is
you.
Radio for the
Yes,
World.
Radio for the
Global
World.
History
Global-
Radio
with
for the
Anna.
Thank
World,
you.
yeah.
Thank you,
Yes.
Steve Dunsky. Have a good night.